Okay, this podcast is to show you how to plot data in the program Logger Pro, how to label axes and put the points on the graph and things like that. So what'll come up in your window is there's lots of different buttons up here for different menus, but what we'd be interested in now is taking a look at our XY data. And so let's say you had some data and you typed it in so that you plotted here what you have. What you see down here on the graph, what shows up, the points will show up automatically for you. But what we haven't done yet is we haven't, for instance, labeled our axes. So what you do to label your axes, let's say this was on the x-axis we had time, and on the y-axis maybe we had speed. So you can double click on the x-axis, it brings up this menu, and you could label this time. And for the short name here, you could put in maybe the letter T, and then the units you might have here might be seconds. So you could just put in S or SEC for seconds. And you can see what happens when you click done is that will show up not only in your data column to label your data column, but it will also show up down here on the x-axis, all right, properly labeled. For the y-axis, you just do the same thing. You can double click on that column, and this might be speed, velocity, and the short name then, maybe you just use the letter V for speed or for velocity, and the units would be in something like maybe meters per second, centimeters per second, depends on the experiment, whatever you're using. So when you hit done, notice that that automatically labels this as well for you. Now notice that the graph doesn't take up the entire axis, kind of like it should. So one of the fast ways to be able to adjust and scale your axes is you come up to this button right here at the top menu, and if I'm hovering over it, it shows you that's how you auto scale the graph. All you have to do is click on that, and that makes your graph go to the full length of the axes, and so that's really a nice feature. A lot of times what you want to do is find the slope of the line, for instance, and if you hover above each of these things allow you to examine your data, find a tangent line, do statistics on your data, and here's the one that we'd be interested in right now is doing a linear fit. So with a linear fit, if you click on that, it gives you the best fit line to the data, draws the best straight line through it, and automatically calculates your slope for you. Okay? And so that's really a nice feature. Now a lot of times the other thing you want to do is plot a second set of data on your axes as well. So I'm going to go grab some that I've already generated here out of a different program. I'm going to copy that. And how do we handle that in the Logger Pro? So what we can do is up in the Logger Pro menu, you can choose to add a new data set. And under Data here, you just come New Data Set. It will open up the window. Now you can always make this a little bit bigger. You can just slide this, and you can also slide your graph over if you want to resize your graph. You can always double click on your graph and change the size of this. Okay. All right. So I will take the new data, and I'm going to paste that in. And notice that what happened this time, we still have our time and our speed, which showed up, which was kind of nice. That was already done for us, but the data didn't show up on the graph. So if we want something to happen, what we'll do is we'll click on it. So we're going to click on our axes here, and notice it gives us speed and time. This tells us what we want to plot on the y-axis. So what we want is more, right? We want more data. And notice it gives us our option for data set 2. So we can just click on that speed as well. That's what we also want to plot. And now our second data set will show up, okay, right here. And so a lot of times then you want both the slopes of both of these lines. So if you come up and you ask for a linear fit again, you can click both of these, right? And it'll draw it should draw the slope through both of those lines. Actually, I guess I needed to highlight the data. So what you have to do is you come back, highlight the data, then you want to do a linear fit on both of these data sets. And now when you hit OK, it'll give you the slope of both of these lines, right? And that's usually what we'd be doing analysis with. You can get slopes, y-intercepts, lots of different things like that. You title your graph by just double clicking on the graph, and here's where you can type in the title of your graph. So for instance, you could say speed, right, versus time, or probably something a little more informative depending upon what the nature of the experiment is. And then when you click OK, it'll put that at the top of your graph. So now you'd have a complete graph. You'd have your data analyzed, you have all your data plotted, both sets, you have your axes labeled, and you have a title on your graph. And that's how you get started using and plotting data with Logger Pro.